You're listening to a Nerds podcast. All things nerds, music, horror movies, pro wrestling, video games, anything nerds would like.
Once again, back with another Nerds podcast. Today I have an amazing guest, wonderful, beautiful, talented April Jones. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. My podcast is basically called Nerds Podcast. It's basically for comic books, movies, horror movies, pro wrestling, all etc.
Okay.
Everything for nerds. Nerds will like.
Okay.
Cool. So, I want to talk to first thing. I want to thank you for doing this. I want to say off the back, and I'll probably say this again a lot throughout the interview. But I just want to say that again. I want to say I'm very grateful for you just taking your time out of your day to allow me to interview you.
Thank you, Corey. Well, I'm super glad to be here. I'm glad that it worked out that we're able to do this.
Awesome. Now, it seems that you're a professional wrestler, right?
I am.
Yes. And I want to know, were you a fan as a kid?
I was. So I grew up, this is probably going to age me, but I grew up in the era of Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior, and my absolute favorite is Jake the Snake Roberts. So growing up in that era, I was really drawn to it as a child. Very, very passionate about wrestling, and it just sort of stayed with me, as I grew up and into my adulthood.
That's pretty cool. And don't feel bad, because I'm probably close around the same age as you, because I'm glad you said Jake the Snake Roberts, because that is literally one of my favorite wrestlers to this day.
He is, for me, he was the one for me. Still to this day, I absolutely love him.
His way he still tells a story, and his promos for that time, because back then everyone was loud, talking crazy, and all jacked up, and for him to be like precise and cunning and dark was amazing for that era.
Absolutely, you nailed it. Absolutely, he's absolutely brilliant when it comes to the promos for sure. And that's really, for me, that's what made him stand out as a child, because you would hear him talk, and you would just get so enraptured with what he had to say that it felt so real for me as a child, especially, that you couldn't help but what's going to happen. You were so drawn into him.
Yeah, exactly. Now, do you remember during, I guess I'm not sure it's the beginning of the Attitude Era. I'm not sure when this was, but when the higher power, the whole thing, when Undertaker was basically converting everyone into his dark side, and the ending, it basically revealing that Vince McMahon was going to be the leader. I always wish it should have been Jake the Snake Roberts. Oh,
could you imagine? That would have been brilliant.
That would have made sense.
Such a cool thing.
Yeah.
And I think, you saying that, stepping back and looking at it, I think it would have been one of those things people wouldn't have expected that.
No.
Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly, and I think it's one reason. If Jake was in the right frame of mind, and he was healthy and he was clean, I don't know if he was any substance abuse then. How cool it would have been at the end, the culmination, and Jake Snake pulled the robe off, and he said that he is in pure darkness now. Thank you, Stone Cold, for bringing me back to myself, like some kind of promo like that.
Yeah, I love it. That would have just been so killer. So killer. And, you kind of, touch on something, with Jake the Snake is, it is sad that he, ultimately had his own personal demons, which led to his decline, because the potential for him to have continued, in my opinion, to excel as Jake the Snake Roberts, it really could have been limitless for him.
Yes.
And it would have been super amazing just to see where his character would have gone to in WWE, if that's what he chose to do.
Exactly.
So it is unfortunate that, we may never really know.
No.
But for me, I continue to, although he did have, obviously struggles, back in that era, I continue to have, really, if I go back and watch some of his old matches and his promos, it's I still get kind of those goosebumps, I still will think of him always super positively.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And he was one of the few wrestlers you can go back. I mean, you can say like Rick Rude or Mr. Perfect. I always say them, and those were the wrestlers that were never heavyweight champions, but I would say they are bar none the top greatest wrestlers of all time.
Absolutely, and I think we need to break that down. Like Rick Rude, for an example, really, really great wrestler.
Yes.
And honestly, I think he's really underrated in terms of his wrestling abilities.
Yes.
He wasn't necessarily strong on the mic, so I don't know that he necessarily had the best promo skills.
Yeah.
But he had a really unique look to him. He had a really unique gimmick to him.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't help but really hate the guy. It was like that love-hate. It's like, but he was a good. If you watch his matches and you break it down, he's a solid wrestler.
He is. And like now, I go back and look at certain wrestlers, and you always look at him. I look at him from different eyes now as an adult, and you see people getting bumped around and stuff. It never occurred to me that they're doing all the work. They're doing the work.
Yes, and we have to look back at this too. I mean, this isn't an era where these guys were on the road, wrestling match after match. A lot of them are saying like 340 days a year, right?
Yes.
About that.
Horrible.
And like, it wasn't being regulated the way that they are now in WWE. And a lot of these guys, like, that's tough. That is tough on them. Like, right now, these guys haven't really made in the shade, and they're really being fostered to and curated. The characters are on a different level than they were back then. So these guys were doing, like, all that work themselves. And it was just, wrestling was different back then. And, man, for me, it speaks volumes when I look back, because you see the talent that really was there that seems to be overshadowed. Nowadays, everybody's about the bright lights and... the music and this and that, but these guys, a lot of them, it came down to talent back then.
Exactly, it had to, and
yes,
a lot of it, they didn't have physicians back then. They didn't have people to make sure they were healthy, and that's why a lot of drug addictions happen.
Yes, thank you for saying that. Absolutely, and that's like a key thing. Like, now they have the best doctors watching them, and they're very quick to say, "Oh, you're injured. Okay, you're off for a bit." Like, they have the best of the best now, whereas they didn't back then. And you can see why. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but you can see why some of these guys started to self-medicate in various, components, different areas. Be it alcohol, be it drugs, whatever. And that was just because the pressure was also on them to get to these shows and to put on the shows and to not let the fans down.
Exactly. You didn't work, you didn't get paid. That's basically what it was.
That's right. Yeah, that's it.
That was messed up. Okay, now back to you. I want to ask you. Okay, as a kid, you said Jake St. Robertson like that, and I'm gonna say as a kid when it registered to you. I don't want to say a little kid because it might didn't register. Like, did you remember anything out of the ordinary when you were watching as a kid? Did it stand out and you go, "This is awesome"?
For me, as a child, I remember going to my dad was very good at, especially as a young girl, I would say back in that era, definitely it wasn't common. Like, I didn't have any young girlfriends that were into wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I hung out with a lot of boys during that time who were into wrestling.
Okay.
And my dad was very good at, he really sort of, I remember him taping, like, the Saturday night main events for me, and I would watch it on repeat. And, getting, the pay-per-views and, like, going to the store and renting them and just watching them over and over again. And I would say, for me, a couple things. I remember my dad taking me to WWE, or at the time it was WWF, had come to a local arena, and we had gone, and it was sort of when Undertaker was first coming out. So this is when he was with Paul Bearer. The lights would go out. It was like the original OG. Yep. And I remember being at this particular arena live and the lights going out. And I remember getting goosebumps and thinking, wow, like the silence that transpired amongst this huge arena, and people watched. Like everybody sort of felt that really scary, eerie feeling with him there, and the power that he had over this whole crowd with his persona. I remember thinking, like, wow, this is pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
And he hadn't even wrestled. He was just like, this was his intro, right?
Yeah,
he was just coming out, but it was just enough, like, just the music and the way the lights went out. It was like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
you know?
I like
and
that.
then I can think, yeah, like, and it was so different. I remember when they said, he, when he was coming with, oh gosh, where did they say he was? He
Death
came
Valley.
from at the time. Death Valley, and I was like, man, like, I never want to go there. That's gotta be the scariest place. Like, you really thought Death Valley was like, it was a real thing happening, right?
Exactly.
So, like, for me, that's a very, like, tangible experience that I had with wrestling. I think back to some of the renting. I talked about the pay-per-views, like the WrestleManias, and just that feel of, like, Hulk Hogan. And I liked Hulk Hogan. I wouldn't call myself, like, a huge fanatical fan. But when he was coming out, and it's like the music and you could feel your own heart, the adrenaline going, because everybody was so hyped up. And it's like, even when I visualize it in my head as I speak to you, I can feel my heart racing, because it's just that feeling that comes with it. So I would say those are, like, some pretty big things for me that are standout things.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Now I like that. Now, as when you were growing up in school, did you do any kind of athletic sports or anything?
I've always been very athletic. So growing up, when I was younger, I did pretty much every dance that was available. Soccer, definitely. I was, like, very competitive in soccer, indoor, outdoor, tennis. I'm trying to, like, I was into, BMXing.
Okay.
I was into gymnastics. Pretty much every sport that I could do, I did do.
That's cool. I like that. Now, when you first broke in, what was the name of the school that actually got you started to train with?
So when I first started training, I trained with Tyson Dukes.
Okay.
And so he has ties to WWE. He opened up a school up in Ontario here.
Okay.
And then when I trained with him, then I started to overlap with another school. Tyson School was about an hour and a half away, so it was pretty lengthy commitment to travel there to and from multiple times a week. There was another school a little bit closer by. It's called HPW. So I sort of transitioned over there. Two reasons for that. A, it was closer, and B, at the time, Tyson wasn't offering private classes. It was just open classes.
Okay.
And I started to get to the point where I felt I needed and I wanted more of that one-on-one
Gotcha.
Feeling. So HPW was able to do that. With that as well, I started working more shows locally for me. So it just sort of made sense for me to train in the area, because you have a better sense of, what the fan base is, who the other talent is that you're working. I could, have those people come in and train with them with me as well.
Cool. That's pretty cool. Now, I always ask this question, it's like never gets old, but like, what was like when you took your first bump? How did that feel?
Scary. It was scary. Like, it is a real, I don't know, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go ahead. I ain't gonna hurt no.
Okay. It's a real mind fuck, because it's so ingrained in us to not want to take a bump or to not want to fall, and to have to sort of release it to actually, it's a mind thing, right? It's like, you have to do it, but your body naturally doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's so much more. I think when we watch TV and we, watch the wrestlers, we're very quick to judge, like, well, why did they do this, or how did they stumble there? And when you actually get into the ring, it's so much more work than what we realize.
Yes, I agree. I did it once when I'm in my early 20s, and it was a gym not too far down from where I live. And I remember getting that mat for the first time. He told me to take a bump, and I knew right then I was not built for that.
Yeah, no, it isn't. People think, and I think it's really important that we acknowledge this. People say wrestling is fake, and the one key thing we need to realize is, although some of the storylines are scripted and whatnot, wrestling itself is not fake. Like,
no.
You're really taking those bumps. You're really doing those moves. And I think that's where people aren't really understanding. Like, a bump is a bump. There's nothing fake about that.
Exactly.
And the rings, the rings isn't like, a padded mattress.
No.
At all. We're trained to take the bumps, but it doesn't mean that the bumps don't hurt. It doesn't mean that we're not going to get injured. And I think that's a really important thing that we address on there, because wrestling really isn't fake.
No, it's not. And it's always weird when people say that, and it's clearly like people literally taking actual hitting the mat or hitting onto a table. It's like you wouldn't go to a professional football player who got sacked on the field. It's like, wow. That hurt. Did it hurt? That's like, didn't you see me get knocked out?
Damn straight it hurt. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think, it's funny how people are very quick to weigh in on something that they've not participated in.
Exactly. That's always comical.
Yeah.
Now, how was the regiment training? What did they have you? What kind of drills they had you doing when you started training there in any school?
So when I first reached, so each school, I think it's important, and I can't speak to, obviously, every single school. The schools I've trained at or the trainers I've trained with, they run really differently. So Tyson's very into conditioning. There's a lot of conditioning work, even prior to stepping into the ring. There is, a lot of drills. So for an example, 1 week you may work on, and I'm using this just as an example, but headlocks. And that is what we're working on over and over again until we master that one particular move, okay? And then at the very end of it, it typically is, you break out and you kind of do, he might say, here's a plan a 2-minute match, or plan a 3-minute match. You have an opponent, we plan it out, we do it, and then he critiques it. With the other school that I worked at, it's definitely a little bit different. We warm up, and then it's, pretty much, it's a free-for-all. It's what do you want to work on, and we'll work on that today. So you kind of go in with what it is that you want to work on, and then that trainer will work with you.
Okay, that's cool. Now,
so it's different. It's really different. And then obviously, doing the one-on-one, so the private lessons, for me, I've gone in doing that if I'm planning specifically for a match, or if there are things that, I really want to learn how to do a pedigree, so it's an opportunity for me to go in and just perfect that, because that's not necessarily something I'm going to learn. If it's a huge class, you may get, if you're lucky, 10 minutes ring time.
Yeah.
So, cumulative. So, to be able to go in and do the one-on-one, it's an opportunity for you to work on very specific things that you want to work on.
That's pretty cool. I like that. That's all right. Now, I don't know in your era right now are they really tough on y'all, because I know back in the day they used to basically, the stories about how they used to break people to see if they have tough enough to handle it. How is the is it like tough love? How does the mental part of it, do they treat you like?
Are you referring to behind the stage at the shows, working with other opponents?
Well, basically, when and still in training wise, they how they used to would try to break people. Are they still? Yeah. How does that work?
I wouldn't say that. Tyson is very. Tyson's very old school. Tyson is he holds you accountable for the work that you're doing. So he will make you keep redoing things until you have gotten it right. The other trainer that I've worked with, he is a little bit more forgiving and a little bit more gentle with his approach on things. So if you're not getting something and he sees that you're not getting it, he'll say, let's take a break from that, and we'll circle back to it later. Let's take a break. And I would say that particular environment, it's good and bad, because, if you are getting frustrated, sometimes the worst thing you can do is to keep practicing, because you are frustrated and you can start to make mistakes, you can get sloppy, and potentially injure either yourself or somebody else. On the flip side, too, not holding somebody a little bit more accountable, it also gives somebody an opportunity to be like, well, I can't do it, so I'm just not gonna not do it. So there's that fine balance of holding somebody accountable, and also being too gentle.
Yeah.
Having said that, I've not experienced, and I know what you're talking about, basically having people to the point where, like, they're emotional. I personally have not experienced that myself. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, but it's something that I've not personally experienced.
I got you. You know, I was curious because I've asked some people before, and some people, it's always been positive. It's never been a negative thing. But you remember that story, I think it was in WWE, and like how the Performance Center people, whatever, had called out, I think his name was Hugh Morris. I don't know his real name. I forget his real name, but he got charged with all kinds of stuff. How he was very disrespectful to female wrestlers and male wrestlers, and I think one of them, he's the dinosaur guy in AEW. He's the, you know what I'm talking about?
Okay, keep going on.
He called him out. He said he was very disrespectful to him. That's why I was curious, and that era wasn't that long ago. That's why I was curious, and I'm glad you didn't experience, because it's not a, I wouldn't say it's bad or good, but it's like I would rather not people experience that at all if they didn't have to.
Yes, and like I say, I personally not experienced it. When working shows, there is, there has been controversy behind the scenes, with some of the more senior vets being harder on some of the younger talent. And I think, when we had that whole speaking out movement, sort of in the height of the pandemic, I think that really a lot of things were highlighted during that time. And I think, honestly, the people that came forth, it's really sort of the tip of the iceberg of really what goes on behind the scenes. But I also think it speaks volumes to, clearly things are going on behind the scenes. Clearly these types of things happen to people. I feel as though, and if I'm going off on a tangent, please let me know.
It's okay.
I was pretty fortunate in terms of when I first got into wrestling, I got into it working as a manager.
Okay.
And so with, I'm a bodybuilder, so with my physique, I was always more of a China-like figure.
Gotcha.
In the wrestling world.
Mm-hmm.
And I primarily worked with and against men. It was men's matches, as a manager for men.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first got in, I probably was viewed a little bit different because I didn't go in as the typical cast, female.
Gotcha.
And so I was, in my opinion, viewed a little bit differently. It's like, here's this woman coming in, she's got big muscles, she's getting involved in these matches with other men. I was working with other men, so maybe there was an element of protection. And when I say that, I mean like behind the scenes protection. I'm with sort of the guys, And my role being a manager, it evolved very quickly. It was like suddenly I went in there, you went from doing the cliche slapping your opponent or, quickly choking them to body slamming them and, taking bumps and really getting involved. And so for that, that's how my, foot in the wrestling world evolved, because suddenly it was like, okay, I need to start training and being able to do more and more in the ring, which then eventually evolved to me breaking away, being a manager and working independently. Mm-hmm. And I would say for the most part, even with that, most of my bookings have been intergender matches, which I love. So I love working men.
That's cool. I like that. Now, what kind of style would you say your style if you have a style? I'm just curious if you have one, if you could say one.
I would say I like to model myself with my own spin. Once again, and like I do hold China in high regard. Like for me,
that's cool.
I find her a really when I say strong, like physically strong female. So I really try to go more like that route, like a powerhouse, strong woman. so I would say I would identify myself more with her type of style.
Okay, that's cool. She was very athletic and very, gifted
very athletic,
wrestler.
So very athletic, very strong. Not afraid to back down to men.
Yes.
So that's how I'm not trying to be her, but I would say that would be more my style.
That's cool, though. I like that, though. But I think you would be believable, too, because that's the thing. And it's not, and I never had a problem with intergender wrestling. I never had a problem with it. But I can see sometimes when you'll see a match that is, like, ridiculous. It's not, there's no way this person is going to take this other person down because the person's petite. And that guy looks like, basically, Andre the Giant. But if you're a muscular person like yourself and very athletic, you can at least believe that this person, if he's a male component, you can believe you'll cause damage at least to that person.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's a really important thing when we view the intergender wrestling, the matches particulars. You have to be able to sell.
Yes.
You have to be able to, it has to be believable. You have to make, the crowd believe, hey, you know what, I actually think that this woman could take on this man, or at least have a fighting chance to do that. And if you're not able to sell and not able to relay that story, nobody's going to believe it.
No,
not one person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the same vein, and I know she's gone to some controversy, and I still like as a wrestler, Tessa Blanchard. I believe that when she got the Impact Championship belt, when she beat what's her name, I believed it. It was realistic. I could see it.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Let's put her controversy aside.
Yeah.
If you look at her, she is a strong wrestler. You cannot take that away from her whatsoever. She is strong. She is fluid. Mm-hmm. She knows what she's doing.
Exactly.
So if you didn't know, all the other things going on, she's a fantastic women's wrestler. Another female wrestler that I think is a very strong female wrestler is Jordynne Grace.
Oh yes.
I love her.
I
love Jordynne Grace. I think that she is I've watched countless matches, live because I'm a huge fan of hers.
Yeah.
When you see her, she's going against, and I've seen a varying degree of men that she has gone against, all different shapes and sizes. Mm-hmm. There's not ever been a match that I've watched of hers thinking, oh, I don't know if she's going to get this one. Like, every single one, she holds her own, and I have a lot of respect for her.
That's cool. I like that, and I love her. And since we're talking about, talking about female wrestling, you remember at a time when the female wrestling was not as widely. I'm trying to think the word. I don't say respected, because I'm sure it was respected in some areas, but you always saw them as valets, and except for Sister Sherry, there was never hardly any female wrestlers that were actually showcased, and
absolutely, yep.
And I'm just when did you personally see the shift where everything was starting to, I wouldn't say get to the point now, but you saw a shift where actually they're showing female wrestlers as not just, the eye candy or something like that?
I would say for me, and that's very interesting, that's a great question to ask, when the Attitude Era came out, there was pretty much every single woman there was, in my opinion, kind of these eye candy, the cliche, women wrestlers, big boobs with blonde hair, except for Lita.
Yes.
And when Lita came into the ring, for me, it was wow, this
very
girl
different.
can wrestle. She knew what she was doing. She did some really, really, phenomenal. When I see it, I was I remember the time being really blown away by her, and I thought, wow, she wasn't, the average woman during that era. She had talent, and I have even gone now, years later, and I have actually rewatched a lot of Trish Stratus's matches.
Yeah,
and I really, at that time, undervalued her capabilities, because when I go back and watch her now, you can see you can see her evolving and how she became a stronger and stronger wrestler.
Exactly.
And I think I was very quick at that time because when she first came out, she had that look. It was the blonde hair,
face.
the big boobs, and she was this kind of. And now, going back on it, she deserves a lot of respect for the way she herself worked hard to evolve as a wrestler.
Oh yeah, definitely. And and honestly, I understand if you kind of would roll your eyes back then, because back then there was, whatever leader, there was also the hoe train. There was the
I know.
There was the cutting off what's his name's penis. There was Vince McMahon having sex with what's his name and putting his wife in a coma.
They really sexualized, I would say, 99% of the women. And it's, at the time, I loved it. I loved the Attitude Era.
Yeah,
and
it was awesome.
For me, as wrestling, it was one of those times in wrestling where I couldn't wait to tune in till the next week.
Exactly.
Storylines, everything was always so over the top. I bought into it, and I was pumped for that next week to come. And so, but the women themselves and the roles that the women played in that particular era were very,
that's
it's actually pretty sad if you think about it.
Yeah.
And it's changed obviously drastically since then. But overall, like a lot of the women, they were sort of screaming, the pulling the hair.
Oh yeah.
And there's a few exceptions. Molly Holly was pretty good.
Oh yeah, she was talented, very talented.
Yeah, there was, there's a few rare exceptions, but unfortunately, I don't feel that they got showcased the way that they should have.
No, and I think a lot of it is, if you look at like Molly Holly or Trish, you can put her in there, or Lita, and some other like Jazz and them. The other wrestlers, they were not technically, trained. So they were not. They were models. They were probably strippers. They were probably, whatever venue they came from.
Yeah.
So the whole purpose of them doing this was just for 22 to whatever age young men who are watching this. It was basically geared towards them. That's why they were so prominent on the show.
They for sure geared it to a very specific demographic, and they did a really good job of it because everybody loved it. That whole demographic bought into it, for sure.
Exactly. Now, I had to say, like, I want to make sure I talk about your promotion wherever you wrestle it now, because I want to bring that up. I want to make sure I don't forget that. Like, what's the name of the promotion, if you have a promotion you wrestle for now?
Honestly, there's about 21 promotions that I wrestle for.
That's cool.
So it's a really amazing. Obviously with the pandemic, I don't know what you guys are like down there. We're completely shut down up here in Ontario.
We don't have a promotion down here anyway. I'm from Lynchburg, Virginia. We don't have one.
I travel all over Ontario. I travel down to the States, which I can't even cross the borders right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very so there's so many. There's some bigger ones like Crossfire, for an example. They're with Fight TV. So I see some of the larger ones. Then there's like a lot of, even just within the city I live in, there's about 5 smaller promotions that I work for as well. I travel into Toronto where there's multiple promotions. So it's just, it's all over. There's not, one that I work exclusively for.
That's cool.
And that's also great too, because it's, a great crossover. It's nice to work different people. It's nice to see different fans. It's nice to travel, and it gives you, as a wrestler, a way better opportunity to not be pigeonholed working that same group of people. It's good to go out and experience, the different talent that's out there, and you're able to learn so much from other people.
Mm-hmm. Hold on one second. Give me 1 second. I apologize.
No problem.
Hey, so I'm doing an interview.
Oh, all right. I couldn't get bubbles.
Go ahead.
I'll get the case out.
Okay.
The closet, so.
Okay.
It's going to piss Don off.
It's okay. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to do that. That was kind of professional. I apologize. I'm back.
No worries. No worries.
Cool. Now, as in promotions, I forget what were we talking about. I apologize.
Oh, we were just asking what promotions I work for. So I was
Okay,
just
cool.
saying that I work for a multitude. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, I want to ask you about, like, you know, as heels and babyface go, if you have a preference, and if you do, which one do you prefer?
Okay, that's a great question. My character when I originally started was the queen of being a heel, and I'm really good at being a heel. But as a human being, I am a very nice person.
Yeah.
And no matter how mean I could be in the ring, people really, really, really identified as me as a face. People love me, and with that, I became, especially getting more into the intergender wrestling, the matches. By default, you turn more to being a face because people are rooting for a woman to
succeed,
to win.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it's evolved. I feel more comfortable being a face because I feel like I'm still being true to myself. I find it difficult, especially when fans are coming up for autographs, reaching out to me. I feel that I'm more authentic with who I am, and I feel, especially as a woman in wrestling, a strong woman, I have a very positive outlook in life. That's just something I foster as a human being. I'm able to really represent myself well and connect with the fans on a different level that way. I find I am definitely believable as a heel because, I can do some pretty nasty things in the ring for sure. But I prefer to be a face.
That's cool though. But I can see why, I don't think anyone really wants to, unless it's two female wrestlers fighting. Then you don't feel awkward because it's even though you're a powerful person and we can whoop someone's ass. The idea of wanting a woman get punched in the face, still I can't do that. Yeah,
somebody has to be. By default, somebody has to be the bad guy. But I would rather. I like being. I'd rather be the hero.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, I know we mentioned Impact Wrestling, so that was a given because you mentioned Jordan Grace. But is there any outside promotions that you like to watch? It could be close to you. It could be all around the world. Anywhere do you enjoy watching outside of Impact?
Yeah. So up here in Ontario, there's one. It's called Smash Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with Smash? They bring in really big talent. Any independent wrestler you can think of has been brought in there.
Okay.
So I really like going to their shows.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to work their shows. They're really, really well pieced together. The production's really well. So that's one promotion, I really, really like.
Mm-hmm.
There are naturally just, in the area that I live, when you have fans that live in your area, it is nice to be able to work and I'm the smaller promotions because it's a little bit more of an intimate feel.
Yeah.
You have a little bit more of a connection to your local area.
Cool.
I try to do outreach work within my local area. I think it's a really important
That's cool.
thing to do. And I feel like by working some of the smaller promotions, it's an opportunity to engage within my community.
That's
and then we look at things like when EW opened, it started running, that was a huge thing.
Yeah.
For independent wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
We needed something. We needed to step away from WWE.
Yeah.
WWE was dominating with the monopoly, and
yes.
No disrespect if you're a huge WWE fan, but man, it's changed. It's changed over the years, and I wouldn't say it's changed for the better.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see. It was refreshing to see an alternative, and it was refreshing to see some of these independent wrestlers getting picked up that
Exactly.
really
I think
deserve
that's
to
awesome.
deserve to be
Yes,
accepted. It's like
exactly.
some of these faces that I've worked shows with, and man, these guys are talented, and women, you know, they're talented.
Exactly.
And it's so nice to see that they're on a platform that everybody gets to see them.
Exactly, I agree.
Not, you know, trying to get to a local city where they may be. We can all tune in and watch them, and the shows are fantastic for the most part.
Yes, exactly.
So, you know, to me, I think, you know, that's a huge thing.
It is. I agree. That is amazing. And we need other venues for wrestlers to showcase their talents. There shouldn't be one monopoly because it doesn't make any sense.
It could not be. No, and you know, it was starting to get to the point for me that I couldn't even bring myself to turn on WWE anymore.
Yeah, it's corny.
So yeah, so I was really happy to see. And this isn't a shot at Impact or NWA at the time or anything like that. You know, NWA definitely was doing their thing online, and you know, they had some really, really great talent as well.
Yeah, they did.
So, you know, I don't want to take away from that, but like, it's just the AEW is just on a different level.
Exactly, and I think it's not to forget the fact that it was basically, you know, from the ground. It literally was. It was hitting full speed before they even did the first episode, the first actual show, and they already had you know promotions out talking about it before you even had an actual, you know, AEW even showcase itself. Everyone knew exactly what it was before it even showed.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was probably the first time, and I don't know what the feel was down in the States, but I would say definitely up here, it was the first time in a very long time that people were truly excited to tune into wrestling.
Exactly.
It was almost like it revitalized the industry.
It did. It gave us like a new thing, and you know, I don't. It's nothing against WWE, and you know, the thing about WWE, WWF, they were the originators, the people who made it possible. So it's not like you knocking on them. It's a constructive criticism when you criticize because you want to be better. It's not like you're knocking the talent or even the writers. It's you like I expect y'all to be better, but they were the originators, and it's like and I always give them props because if it wasn't for them, there'll be like 10,000 territories that no one would even know about.
Absolutely. Oh, listen, they are the pioneers when it comes to being the ones to put wrestling on mainstream.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it's never not.
They are the pioneers of that. Yeah. So there's no arguing that.
Yeah.
There's definitely a huge disconnect as to where they were and where they are now, and the decline that transpired during that.
Yeah.
You know, we could kind of go back and forth, and, you know, everybody wants to weigh in. And,
yeah.
You know, I think the overall consensus is, at the end of the day, Vince is
He's the boss. He's the man.
The one,
He's the dude.
You know, in charge. And, you know, not that I know him intimately, but, you know, I think we all hear the same consistent stories over and over again that, like, when Vince has an idea, that's going to be what it is. And there's nothing you can do to change it.
Yep.
And the thing is, you know, when your fans are constantly telling you, we want this, we want this, we want this,
yep,
you've got to start listening to what the fans want.
Exactly. At least try to.
So,
at least try to listen.
Yeah.
But then again, like, you know, this is the
humor
man who fought God.
Bit.
Yeah, he fought God. Keep in mind, he fought God. He had Triple H having sex with a dead body during a funeral home where there was actual funeral going on.
Oh, honest to God.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you gotta take everything with some things you just gotta let go. But first of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to do this, and hopefully again down the line, hopefully I get to talk to you. Just talk about wrestling, just anything about wrestling, because I think you have a wide.
I'd love to.
You have a wide knowledge of things. You actually are training. You're actually in the ring. As much as I watch it, I would never have the same experience as you have. So I'd love to hear your opinions and stuff.
Thank you. Well, I'm, you know, glad to share it. And, you know, the one thing is, you know, really we all have different views and different, no matter where we are in wrestling, if we're, you know, green, if we're advanced, if we're a fan, if, you know, we're not, we all have different views. And that's the one beauty of it all, is that wrestling unites us all, and we can respectfully listen to one another, hopefully, and learn from one another and, tell each other our experiences from different points of views.
Yeah, it's cool. Now, I got 2 fantasy questions I like to ask now. And the first fantasy question is, say it's a stable, a wrestling stable. You get 4 people. And 4 people, and you're the ring general. Who would be in your stable of 4 people, like, plus you, the 5th person? You can pick anyone. You could be anyone in your promotion. Anyone you want to pick doesn't matter.
Oh, man, that's a tough one, because there's so many good wrestlers out.
It is.
Okay, let me think on this. Who are some of my... Oh, you're putting me on the spot here, because, there are some really, really good talent out there. Okay, let's go to the second question. I'm going to think on this one.
Okay, second question is going to be, hopefully, a little bit easier. Second question is basically this. Let's say in the main event, you are the WrestleMania main event, whatever, for the chips, whatever, heavyweight championship, whatever.
Yep.
Who would you like to be your opponent in that match? Doesn't matter who it is. I don't even have to know who it is. You could be someone you actually know you like to wrestle. It doesn't matter.
Okay. I would really, if it could be a guy, I would choose, Mike Speedball Bailey?
Mm-hmm.
I'd choose Speedball. I think he's like a really, really, really phenomenal wrestler, and I really like his craft, and I would love to do something with him.
Okay, that's all right. That's cool.
Yeah, he's really different.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to my stable, for me right now, and I don't know that. I'm trying to think of somebody I work well with versus people that I really love as wrestlers.
Yeah.
I think a few people that I love big wrestlers. I love big guys.
Mm-hmm.
My one favorite wrestler, and I know a lot of people shit on me about this, is I love Brock Lesnar. I
don't understand that. Didn't make any sense.
Yeah,
he's a monster.
love Brock Lesnar. Yeah, he's a monster. I love him. Yeah, and I just love everything about Brock.
Yes.
And if I will go back, and if you ever have the opportunity, if you haven't already, if you go back to when he was first training, when he first started out,
mm-hmm.
he is, because I'll watch a lot of his footage, he is such a good wrestler.
Yes.
Technically, he is.
Yes.
We really underestimate because we get caught up in how he is in WWE that we forget
it's silly. That's silly.
He's got talent. Yeah,
he does. He's a legitimate athlete. Legitimate.
Yeah, he legitimately is. And if you're able to look past his, who he is and what, WWE has pigeonholed him into being there.
Yeah.
He has really, really good capabilities.
Yes.
I think Brian Cage.
Oh,
I
that's
think
cool.
he is a really an amazing wrestler. His size and the stuff that he can do.
It's insane the way he's agile.
It's insane. Yeah. So for me, I love kind of big guys like that. As a female wrestler, obviously I love Jordan Grace.
Yeah.
There's a few other female wrestlers. There's one local up here. She's breaking out into down the States as well.
Okay.
Jody Threat is her name.
Okay.
She's I like Jody a lot because she's very much she's not your cliche female wrestler. She's really good. She hangs with the guys.
Cool.
So Jody would be a really cool one as well.
That's cool. I like that. See,
yeah, a good mix. Two women, two men.
It'd be a great intergender match, and I see you dominating every I guess 10-man tag or whatever, how you would say it. But the thing,
I want to.
yeah, but the thing about I don't understand the knock. I mean, I can understand if you don't like him as a person, and he might be a prick in real life, whoever knows. But you can never. There's no way in the world you're gonna sit there and tell that Brock Lesnar is not a legitimate. He's an NWA. He's an NCAA, whatever the champion wrestler. He stepped onto the field and almost got picked up by the Rams. He was a guy who was doing shooting star presses. This guy's 230. This guy is 230. Think how big and how insane that is for a man who is 230 pounds. A thing a luchador would do. That's something a luchador would do.
Yeah, I'm like genuinely glad that you're speaking about this because I think that's a super important thing to highlight about Brock Lesnar, and I think it's something that people
they keep forgetting.
Definitely, there's an oversight of that.
They keep forgetting. He would do shooting star press, and now this is a bad moment, but still, if it happened to anyone else, they would be the paraplegic. This man did a shooting star press at WrestleMania and landed on his head, and because he has no neck, and he's so muscular that he actually survived it, and he might have had some serious damage, but not enough to like keep him from doing what he needs to do. And keep in mind, this man fought in the UFC. This man held a championship belt in the UFC. There's no way you can tell me that is not a real athlete. I don't care if you say he's a dick. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. You saying he's a dick. There's a lot of people that are dicks, but that has nothing to do with their talent.
Nope, exactly. And like that's the thing is, and you've just nailed it right there. It's like he is multi-faceted in his capabilities for such a realm of different things. Yes. That find me another wrestler that honestly that has had that same scope that he has had.
There's not many.
I think there's not many. And like I say, we have to recognize as well that when we're working a lot of these promotions, we are at the mercy of what that promotion is telling us to do.
Exactly.
And so it doesn't mean that we're not capable. It doesn't mean that we want to do it, but we are being dictated essentially what to do or what the promotion wants from us.
Exactly.
So he is simply just doing his job with WWE. Yeah. If you ever have the opportunity to listen to some of the more famous podcasts in which he talks, he does not like WWE. He is very vocal about his thoughts and opinions about WWE. Yeah. Essentially, it's a paycheck for him.
Yep, exactly.
And I think, he's giving what he's getting out of it, and he's not getting much out of it.
Yeah.
And so, but once again, go back, start watching some of his, and I urge any of your listeners to do
this.
Go back and start watching some of his old matches. You'll be blown away. You would not even think it's the same guy.
Exactly. It is. It's man. There are people who are in their 40s, or matter of fact, there's people in their 30s who are not even close to athletic as he is in his 40s.
Oh yeah, for sure. And he's like the one thing too. I find for myself, I have a lot of respect for the wrestlers that maintain themselves, that are in good shape. Because I think it speaks volumes to just sort of their dedication, their commitment. Overall, like if I'm stepping in the ring, and I'm going to be honest with you, I would much prefer to step in the ring with somebody that is fit.
Yeah.
Because
helps you out.
I feel as though, like, if I know that you're benching, if I know that you're deadlifting, if I know that you're squatting, if I know that you're hitting the gym and you're hitting those weights, then I know you're going to be able to lift me safely.
Yeah, exactly. And, not crazy.
There's a few, like, I can think of some really great, like Elias, for an example. That man is in phenomenal shape. And I really, really like Elias. I think he's got a good gimmick.
I do too.
That guy he's like
crazy.
Ripped beyond anything. There's some guys, and I'll watch their workout videos. Like, these guys train hard, and they take it very, very, very seriously.
Yes.
So and Brian Cage is no different. We talked about him earlier.
Ridiculous.
So I think, when we have talent, Brock is a huge guy. Brock, obviously trains all the time too. Like, he's a fitness guy.
Yes.
So it's I don't know. For me, I like that look. I think it's an important thing. I'm not trying to say that quote unquote the big guys, because there's some other ones out there like that aren't necessarily in shape, but they serve a purpose. They serve a role.
Yep, they're phenomenal
for sure.
too. Most definitely.
Yeah, but that's, for me, it's like when I look at this, I think you've got that whole package.
Exactly. Yeah, he's the next big thing for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And once again, also to loop back to this, to be the age that you are, and not that being in your 40s is old, I'm not trying to suggest that, but in wrestling is not considered, super young.
Yeah, exactly.
So to be in your 40s to be in such great shape
is amazing.
To still be able to perform and do this, and like bumps are hard on the body.
Yes,
bumps are hard.
They suck.
So if you're still able to do this after all these decades, man, kudos to you.
Yep, props. Yeah, thank you again. I want to have you again because the fact you're an amazing athlete, you have amazing physique and all that kind of stuff and all that great stuff.
Thank you.
But I like to talk about even get into the fact that you are a bodybuilder at some point when you're available. It don't got to be like anytime soon, but just talk about regimen and stuff and exercise and how to stay healthy and all that kind of stuff. Because I think you would know important things to do to keep yourself in perfect fit. Or
absolutely, I would love to
keep
do
yourself
that.
alive.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Anytime, you just let me know what works for you.
Awesome. Thank you again, and I hope you have an awesome weekend and week and the rest of your week, or whatever.
And I wish the very same to you as well.
All right,
thank you so much, Corey.
All right, see you.
Okay then. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. That was April Jones, and she was nice enough to let me interview her, and it was a very awesome interview. I am very proud of this one, even though at one point, I got sidetracked, but who cares? Podcasting is supposed to be perfect. That's the point of it. So, hopefully down the line, I'll get to talk to her again and get to talk about many regiment things and all the things that are really fun when you talk to wrestlers and, professional athletes and all together. So, I'm going to sign out again, and I'm going to do zombie sound effects for this one, too. Bye.